In this video, I'm going to present to you 5 most common diet options used to treat IBS symptoms. I'm going to start from the bottom up, where I will start with the diet option that I find least helpful and end up with the diet option that I believe is the most efficient for IBS treatment. Now remember that not everybody would agree with me on this. Perhaps there is a bunch of data out there saying that one is more efficient than the other or more studied than the other. I'm not going to argue with you on that. The list of dietary options that I'm going to present to you is purely based on my own research, opinions, and experiences that I have made as a nutritionist who has helped hundreds of patients treat their IBS symptoms with great success. Number 5, the low FODMAP diet. I've put this particular diet in the bottom of my list, and now you are probably wondering, why is the low FODMAP diet in the bottom of my list, when in fact it is the most practiced diet for IBS treatment worldwide? Well, let me tell you why. Because in my opinion, the low FODMAP diet does not work long term. Here is the thing with the low FODMAP diet. The low FODMAP diet is all about reducing fiber fermentation and involves eliminating and then slowly reintroducing FODMAPs into a person's diet so that you can identify which foods trigger the fermentation process. So by reducing foods that are high on fiber fermentation, like onions, cabbage, beans, and other high fermentable fibers, you reduce the risk of bloating and gas. What the low FODMAP diet does is it offers symptom relief for people affected by IBS. So I'm not saying that a lot of people with IBS are not benefiting from the low FODMAP diet. Don't get me wrong. This is not what I'm saying. However, what I am saying is that the low FODMAP diet for majority of people with IBS cannot stand alone, and there are mainly 2 reasons for this. The primary reason is that if we look at all of the statistics done on IBS, which points out that over 70% or more of all IBS patients also have what's called a bacterial overgrowth. What these wrong bacteria or even pathogenic bacteria have in common is that they all feed off of all types of carbohydrates, which also involve a lot of the carbohydrates that are not restricted in this particular diet. Another reason why the low FODMAP diet could be the wrong choice is that you actually eliminate a lot of the foods that our good bacteria feed on. And also, a lot of these so-called high FODMAP foods are actually some of the healthiest foods that exist, providing enormous amounts of nutrition like minerals and vitamins and antioxidants, etc. I always recommend to take high FODMAPs into consideration and probably eliminate to some extent while treating IBS. However, I do not recommend 100% elimination, but mainly because it is not restricted enough in order to starve off the wrong bacteria. So what you are really achieving with the low FODMAP diet is actually temporary relief. Number 4, the anti-inflammatory diet. So an anti-inflammatory diet is all about reducing inflammation in the body and is rich in antioxidants, omega-3 fatty acids, and other nutrients that help to reduce the inflammation in the body. What I like about the anti-inflammatory diet is that it is restrictive in many of the not so good carbohydrates like sugars and starches, which I find beneficial when talking about IBS treatment. And as sugars, starches, and refined carbohydrates are well known of increasing the inflammation in the body, the anti-inflammatory diet could do some good while treating IBS. However, the anti-inflammatory diet can be rich in fruits, whole grains, and other sources of sugars and starches, and it is, in my opinion, not restrictive enough. Number 3, the elemental diet. The elemental diet offers an alternative approach to treating bacterial overgrowth and SIBO in particular, and clinical studies have demonstrated its high efficiency in reducing gastrointestinal symptoms and normalizing hydrogen levels in the small intestine with an 80 to 84% success rate in eradicating SIBO. The elemental diet helps to starve the wrong bacteria in the small intestine, but at the same time provides the necessary nutrition to sustain a healthy body. This process can take up to 4 weeks, where meals are replaced with a powdered formula for nutrients that are easily absorbed in the gut. In my opinion, this particular diet is beneficial for those who do not do well on a low-carb, high-fat diet, and perhaps those who get constipated when eating too many fiber-rich vegetables. The elemental diet could be a good alternative. However, as the powder formula is the only source of nutrition in this period of time, where no other foods or supplements are to be consumed during this time, it can be hard for some people to complete this diet. And also many experience difficulties when starting to introduce solid foods again, which can take time for the gut to adjust to such drastic changes, going from the liquid diet to solid fibers. Number 2, the ketogenic diet. The ketogenic diet, the so-called Keto Diet, is one of my favorite diet options when treating IBS-related issues. Keto is all about using fat for energy and fuel. Usually, our bodies use carbohydrates for energy. So when we go on an extreme low-carb diet for a period of time, our bodies run out of stored glucose and therefore turn to fat for fuel. The body then produces the so-called ketones, and when ketones are present, the body gets in a state of ketosis, which indicates that your body is now getting its energy from fats instead of carbohydrates. While keto typically is practiced for weight loss, it can also be a good way to treat bacterial overgrowth, which is common in 70% of all IBS cases. However, one of the pitfalls of the ketogenic diet is that it does not take fiber fermentation and high FODMAPs into consideration at all, which means that you can eat a lot of high FODMAP foods like onions, cabbage, beans, etc., which could make you bloat to some extent. But even though you may experience a bit bloating while on keto, I still find it as one of my favorite diets because the majority of people do well on this particular diet. And besides from reducing the symptoms of IBS, they also experience less inflammation, more energy, better sleep, less allergies, and much more. Let's get to my favorite, number 1, the SIBO Diet. This particular diet is designed for those who actually have SIBO, the so-called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. However, I find it useful for all types of bacterial overgrowth, whether it is in the colon, the small intestines, or in the stomach area, where there could be an overgrowth of, for instance, Helicobacter pylori. The SIBO diet is actually very carb restrictive, but besides from being low carb, it also takes other aspects into consideration. One of those is the fiber fermentation issue, the so-called high FODMAPs. But it also takes histamine intolerance into consideration, as many IBS patients also suffer from histamine intolerance. So basically, the SIBO diet is based on the theory of being high FODMAP restrictive. And on top of that, it goes to say that limiting sugars like lactose, fructose, glucose, etc. may also help reduce bacterial overgrowth. And on top of that, you also may take histamine into consideration as well. So in my opinion, this is the best dietary option for treating IBS symptoms. I'm still not saying that it is the best choice for all, but in the majority of the IBS cases, it is one of the dietary choices that can be most efficient. However, remember that a diet cannot stand alone in an IBS treatment. There could be a necessity of also using probiotics antimicrobials, and other supplementation options for the treatment of IBS. And remember to click the subscribe button if you would like to see some more content like this in the future. Thanks for watching.